Hello everybody, my name is Emily Overpeck and I am a survivor of abuse and this is my story. I was going to edit this video and have a whole list of things that I wanted to talk about, but I think that this video has so much more depth and I think it's going to impact a lot more people the more raw and truthful and just open that it is. So I'm just going to jump right into my story and how I got to healing. So, not to go into too many details, but I went through sexual abuse for 7 years. I was 5 years old when it started, and it ended when I was 12. And during this time, my family and I lived in Hawaii, and I never told a soul. I never told a single person because I believed my abuser when he told me that he would do it to my sister if I told anyone. So I never did. And this abuse was daily, weekly. It was consistent. So I never told anyone. At this point, I'm 12 years old and all I had ever really known was abuse. So my family and I moved away from Hawaii and the abuse ended. And my parents decided to move to an RV and travel around the US for a year and decide where we wanted to move next. After about a year, we landed in Colorado. We got a beautiful house out in Colorado. And after a few months, my older brother had gotten this job at this pizza place and he had made a friend who was 23 at the time and I was 13. And this friend started grooming me, and before I knew it, I was in a full-blown relationship with this man, and I was a child. I was sneaking out. I was getting mentally, physically abused by this guy. I was getting sexually abused by him. But I thought he loved me. I thought that it was consensual. There's a reason that there's consent laws. So anyways, I'm with this guy, and at this point we're in a full-blown relationship, and we had been together for almost a year, and he was horrible to me. He treated me like dirt, but I thought it was love. So fast forward, I'm doing things that I never should have been doing as a child with this man, and one day he was over at our house and he was very catch me if you can type of attitude. So he told me that he wanted me to go to our guest room with him and that he wanted to have sex with me. So I went to the guest room, and of course that's what happened. And now mind you, my dad, who was a cop for 20 years, was sitting downstairs and my mom was in the room next to us. My dad's not stupid by any means, so when he didn't know where we were, he walked into the guest room and walked in on me and this man having sex. Or, I guess I like to call it abuse because I wasn't old enough to consent. He was sexually abusing me. Whether I thought it was consensual or not, it wasn't. So, anyways, my dad walks in on it and he beats the crap out of this dude. And in that moment, I'm traumatized. Everything is happening in slow motion. I thought I was in love with this guy, and I know what's about to happen. I know that my dad's gonna beat him. I thought he was gonna beat him to death. And I knew that he was gonna go to jail if he didn't die. So my dad beats him and I'm freaking out. I'm traumatized. Everything is literally happening in slow motion before my eyes. And I run out of the room and I go and get my mom and I tell her, and I'm begging her to help me. I'm begging her to stop him. And she's not gonna go in there and stop my dad from beating this guy who is abusing me. So my dad beats him up and calls the cops, and the cops show up and they escort this guy out of our house, and they come over and they start talking to me and questioning me. And I still thought I was in love with this guy. I had no idea that I had been abused. So I try and lie to them, and I try and tell them that nothing happened, that it was a one-time thing, when really it had been happening for at least a year at this point. So they arrest him and they tell my parents that they need to take me to go get a rape kit because it would make their case stronger. So my parents take me to go get a rape kit, and I just want to touch on that for a moment. Getting a rape kit is probably, I just got chills talking about it, it's probably just as traumatizing as the abuse. I'm not diminishing abuse, but when you go through something like that, and then you have to go get a rape kit, and you're in this paper gown, and your face is getting swabbed, and your nose is getting swabbed, and your whole body is getting swabbed, and there's lights flashing, and cameras taking pictures of you. I was traumatized. At 13 years old, my legs are up in these stirrups, and I'm getting a full inspection and pictures, and I'm watching this happen on these cameras because they let you watch, which I'm sure that you have a choice in that. I don't remember if she asked me that or not, but I'm traumatized. I'm so traumatized, and I couldn't even talk. I couldn't talk, I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep. So this rape kit is finally over. My parents take me home, and it was a completely silent car ride. I wouldn't say a word. I could not talk. Even if I wanted to, I couldn't. So my parents take me home, and that night was traumatizing. I didn't sleep, I didn't eat, I didn't drink water, I didn't do anything. I could not do anything. So I'm just laying in my bed. I couldn't even cry because I was so traumatized. So fast forward, and my parents are taking me to therapy every single day, and I'm still not talking. At this point, it's been 2 weeks, and I've not said a word. I've barely eaten a package of peanut butter crackers in literally almost 2 weeks. I've barely drank water. I didn't want to talk to anyone. I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to necessarily die, but I didn't want to be alive, if that makes sense. I know that's so cryptic, but I didn't want to kill myself, but I just didn't want to be alive. So I'm going to all these therapy appointments, and I'm not even saying a word to these therapists. I couldn't talk. So at that point, I had no hope. I had no hope that I was ever going to heal. I didn't know that there was another side. I didn't know that I could grow from this. And one time somebody told me when I was going through this after a few months that you either let your abuse define you and that becomes who you are, or you let it become a part of your story and you become the best version of yourself that you ever can be. And back then, I didn't know what path I was going to choose. I didn't know how not to let it define me because that's all I had ever known was abuse. And one day, I woke up and realized I'm not going to let this define me. I'm not going to let these abusers have any more power over me. They took enough of my life. They're not going to take a second more. And that was the moment that I woke up. But how I got to that point. Also, I forgot to add that the only person I'd ever told about my abuse as a child was this guy that I was in a relationship with. So when he got arrested, of course he didn't want to take all of the blame. So of course he tells the cops about my past abuser. So that comes out, and I'm going through interviews and detectives and non-stop, hours long, every detail that there possibly was about these abusers. And at that point, therapy wasn't helping me, and this is just my story. I'm not telling you that therapists do not help, because they do, and I loved my therapist deeply after I got to a point that I could share. But my therapist at that moment was not helping me because I wasn't being honest. I didn't want to talk. I didn't want to share it all. I just wanted to wake up and feel better. That's all I wanted. And I never thought that that was even a slight possibility until one day my mom's good friend reached out to her and she said, Kim, do you know what an emotional release is? My mom was like, no. And she explained it to her, which I will have a whole slide on what it is. But basically, somebody who's trained in emotional release can subconsciously and remotely clear trapped emotions that somebody has. So this lady offered to do these emotional release sessions for me, and it saved my life. It saved my life because I no longer had to talk to get healed. And I'm not saying that therapy and talk therapy does not help. It does. It helps you desensitize, it helps you work through it, it helps you talk it out. But in these moments, I didn't have to talk to get things cleared. So my mom's friend started doing these emotional release sessions for me. And she was doing them, if not daily, at least multiple times a week for me. And I didn't know it was even happening until one day I walked up to my mom after a few months of her doing these, and I said, Mom, I don't know what it is, but I feel better. I don't feel like I'm in the depths of it anymore. I feel like there's hope. I feel like I can see the other side and I can almost reach it. And that's when my mom explained to me that her friend had been doing these emotional release sessions for me for a couple months at this point. And I was able to go back and even look at all my results. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't even know this was a thing. And this lady had been clearing all these horrific emotions that I had stuck in me. And now I felt light. I felt like the weight on my chest was lifted and I was able to talk and eat and be happy and smile. I was able to smile again. So, all that to be said, because of this amazing lady who helped save my life, that became my passion. I knew back then that I was going to get certified in emotional release. And I was going to help other people and other victims be able to heal and become whole again and not let them. I hate using the word victim because that's another thing that my therapist told me was you either get to be a victim or a survivor. You can choose the path of being a victim and let this be who you are and let it break you and let it define you. You can choose that life. You can choose to use this as an excuse for every single wrong that has ever done to you. That if you do drugs, it's because I was a victim. Or you can become a survivor and you can let your story help other people. You can become whole. You can let this become a part of your past, not who you are. And that moment, I chose to become a survivor. And that's why I don't claim to be a victim. I'm not a victim. I am a survivor. And even if your kids don't know it yet, they are survivors. You as a parent are a survivor because I know what you're going through is just as horrific. It is. No parent should ever have to watch their kids go through something like that. I watched it break my parents. I watched my mom bawl her eyes out for weeks and months, and it broke me. And these emotional releases, they saved all of us. This lady, this angel was doing them for me, my mom, my brother, my sister, my dad, all of us, our dogs, everyone. And it single-handedly helped save our lives. So I'm going to have a whole nother slide and possibly even a short video explaining what is an emotional release, how it works, what the pricing is, and how to get in contact with me if that is ever something that you're open to. And this is not for me to sell this to you. I don't want to sell anything. I want to give you the tools that were given to me. The things that helped me heal while I was in the depths of it, while I didn't see a single way out. The things that helped me survive. and the things that made me a survivor instead of a victim. And that is my journey to healing. Thank you for listening. And again, on the same post, I will have everything about my story, the emotional releases, and my Instagram where you can reach out to me, schedule an emotional release session, ask me any questions, contact me. I'm happy to hop on a phone call with some of you. I'm happy to make another video if you want a video for your kids to be able to watch. But maybe you'll just give them a drop of hope that it doesn't have to define them, that they can and they will get through this, and so will you. All my love. Thank you for listening.